Welcome back, everyone. This video is going to focus on MLA format for in-text citations specifically. As you can see on the screen here, I'm at the home page of the CSN libraries because I would first like to walk you through how to access the appropriate resources and information for everything MLA or APA. But for the sake of this video, we're going to focus on MLA style formatting and specifically in-text citation. When you get to the library page, you will go to library.csn.edu, and this will be the landing page. You will then go to Research Help and then How to Cite. Once you are on that page, you're going to notice quite a bit of information because understanding MLA has a lot of layers to it. However, much of what is important to understand about this and citing sources and works cited and everything that encompasses MLA is that you are not necessarily required to remember all of this stuff. This isn't something that you have to commit to memory. And a lot of this is a matter of just doing the work and using the sources because there's just so many different ways that you can cite information and so many different types of other source material that you can include in your paper. What this video is going to highlight are the basics. Once you understand the basics, the rest is a matter of just, as I just said, going back to the source and finding the correct information for you. If you have an opportunity, this video is going to be a great sub video for you to watch, but preferably focusing on what I provide here is going to be a little bit more insightful in giving you actual information for what you need for your paper. So for the sake of this particular information, we want to talk a little bit about what does it mean to cite my source and what is citing your source. So essentially, citing your source means that at some point when you're writing your essay, you're going to be including other people's work to support your information, to provide evidence, to provide background for whatever reason. We want to ensure that we are not using their information and pass it off as ours. So what we need to do as writers and those of us using the MLA format is to cite, what we say, cite the source or give credit to the source. There is a number of ways to do that, and that's going to depend on the kind of source material that you use, whether it be a YouTube video, a podcast, a book, a journal. It just really depends. But as I said before, there are some basics here. So if you are on the website, you could click on How Do I Cite? This is going to give you the basics as far as a breakdown. So you can download this particular document and it will provide you with a sample paper. But let's jump into in-text citations for first. What is important to understand about MLA and what sets MLA apart from some of the other ways that you can cite your source is that it is very basic. Ultimately, the most basic format you can use is an author's last name and page number. So as an example, you can see here that the author's last name is in the parentheses and you'll see the page number here. So I want to highlight the specific format now. When you're looking at this parentheses here, this is actually what we mean by in-text citation. That means it is in your paper, in your essay itself, where you are documenting what information belongs to the other person or the source material. In this case, if I'm reading this, you are signaling that this information that comes before this parentheses belongs to Diaz-Loving. And if I were to look up the document or text or whatever sourced material it is, I can find it on page 153. We're going to talk a little bit about what that means because it works alongside with the works cited page. I am going to provide a different works cited video, but for the sake of this example, we'll look further into it momentarily. The other more basic foundation for for in-text citation is that you don't necessarily have to put the author's last name in the parentheses. You can do it what's called in text or in the sentence. So you'll notice that we've moved the author's name, Diaz-Loving, into the sentence itself and states. This is what we call a signal phrase. That means we are signaling to the reader that we're introducing someone else's work, and then this word right here is going to tell us what that means. So we could say states, we could say argues, we can say that they contend. We'll talk more about the verb choice and signal phrase in another video, but for the sake of just the in-text citation, we know that Diaz-Loving is stating this information here, and then we're going to cite the page number. Now, these are the two most basic ways if you have the author's last name and if the information comes from some sort of document that has page numbers. Now, of course, there are going to be situations where you're not going to have the author's last name. Sometimes we have anonymous work or work that is not included with the author's name. And some cases, we don't necessarily have the page number. So if there is no page number, we're going to start there first. Then you're simply just going to put the author's last name there, or you could put it in the actual sentence itself. Now, there are other exceptions, meaning sometimes you're going to have other situations where there is more than one author. If you have two authors or three authors, this is what you're going to include. Again, we're focusing on the author's last names only. If you have two, you're going to join them by the word and. And then if you have three, you're going to put commas here and then the word and as well. Remember, author's last names only and then the page number. If you have more than three authors, so that is to say you have four authors, you are going to use what's called et al., which is Latin for and others. And so let's say this is the author's last name, Min. This is going to be the very first author listed in that text. So in other words, if it's a book or if it's a journal article, whoever's name is listed first is you're going to use that author's last name, and then everyone else's, you're just going to say et al., so you can leave everybody else's name out. And then you'll see there's a period after AL and then 41. So this is going to be the page number. Now, once again, as I stated, there are going to be instances where you don't have the author's last name, but you do have the title of the work. Now, if the title of the work is an article, you are going to use either the first word or the first couple of words, it's up to you, of the article title. You are also going to include quotations. If it's an article, we use quotations. If it's a book name, then we're going to put it in italics. And again, if we have the page number, then we include it. And if down here we do not have the page number, then we remove it. Once again, to remind you, if there is an article, you use quotes. If you use a title of a textbook, album, or anything like that, then it's going to be italicized. See the screen for more information. Now, of course, there are going to be different instances and situations, but for the most part, this is what you're going to encounter, and this is the basics of it. So let's go ahead and take a look at what it looks like in an actual essay itself. So what you're looking at here is a sample essay. This should be familiar to you already if you watch the videos on formatting, but I want to just scroll down for a moment and look at our first in-text citation. So we see here that it is a number. So I'm going to highlight the whole sentence here for a moment and highlight a few things. So the very first thing we want to look at is, yes, we have our in-text citation here. We have our quotes right here. So this signifies that it is a direct quotation. Of course, you, again, will want to watch the video on direct quotation, paraphrase, and summary, and the difference and how to do that. But for the sake of this, we have a direct quotation. Now, I mentioned before that if we just have the number, that means the person's name should be in the sentence, and we have it right here. And so you'll also notice that we have the parentheses and then the period. Whenever we're using in-text citation, we're going to put the period after the parentheses. So there's no punctuation at the end of the sentence. So when we have a standard citation, again, it's going to be different in a block quotation. Be sure to watch that video. But for the sake of this one, a standard citation is going to have the author's name. We're going to have the direct quotations if it's a direct quotation, the page number in the parentheses, as well as the period at the end of the sentence. Now let's talk a little bit about how that looks. So let's take a deeper look for one moment. So this is the same example that I used. We're looking at the same exact thing here. So we have the author's name, and then we have our quotations here. Then we have our page number and then the period at the end. Now, in the Works Cited page, if you've watched the video before this one, then this will make a little bit more sense. But if not, anytime we include an in-text citation, it has to match something from the Works Cited list. So for every entry in the Works Cited list, we have to have a corresponding citation. So let's take a closer look. So here we have Anderson J, we have the name of the work. But when we incorporate in the in-text citation, because we have the name of the author, and this is the author's last name, we have the option. So we could put the first and last name if we wanted to, but if we didn't put it in there, the other option would be that the parentheses would be here, and then we would have Anderson, and then the page number. These are our two options. Both are correct, but I wanted to highlight for you how and what information you would take from the Works Cited page. Let's take a look at another example from that same paper. Now, as you can see here, we have another direct quotation. So let's highlight these. So that means everything in between the quotes is going to be the sourced information, not yours. And we have more quotes here. And then finally, we have our citation. So as I mentioned before, we have our author's last name, we have our page number, and we have our period at the end. This should correspond, and it does, with what we have in our Works Cited page. So we have Ahmed as the last name, that this is a book. So this matches with this one. Let's look at another. In this example, we have something a little bit different, and I wanted to highlight this because you might find yourself using different sources written by the same author. So how do we do that? And again, we'll talk about this in the Works Cited page, but we have Tyson written here, and then what you'll notice is there's 3 dashes. What that means is we're repeating the same author. This signifies that this is the same author. So when you write this, you will have the 3 dots, but what you're telling the reader is that it's still Tyson's work. So once we go in, we have our quotations here, and we have our quotations here. And then we're letting the reader know that Tyson wrote that. And then we have quotation. So because we have 2 works, Crafting Emotional Comfort, and we have Men with Their Muskets, we want to make sure that it comes from this source and not the first one. So in order to do that, we're going to put in quotations the title or brief or shortened version of it and write quotations, men. And then, of course, same thing. We have our page number and then our period at the end. Now, again, this is only if you are working with information where you have more than one source by the actual same author. So once again, with the same Tyson, in the last example, we had it where we included the name of the author in the sentence, but I wanted to show an example of where you would not do that. So here we have Tyson because they have 2 works. We're going to do Tyson, comma, their name, of course, is here. And then we have the comma here, and then we have the name of the work it's referencing and page number. And then if we scroll down here, we have the same thing, but this time it's their other work. So we have Tyson, we have the comma, we have the name of the piece, and then of course the page number. So in some instances, you are going to use videos, YouTube episodes of podcasts, things like that. So this would be one example that you might use. And so we have, of course, our quotations here to indicate what parts are being cited from this video. So we have the person's last name, we have the name of the episode, and then we have where the timestamp. So instead of page number, it's going to be the timestamps of where this is being said. So this is going to be in the first 5 seconds of the start of the episode here. You'll notice that in the works cited page, you'll have it. This is the name of the person's whose YouTube channel that is. And of course, the rest of the information here. But what you'll want to make sure is that if you have the in-text citation, the same principles apply. Author's last name, or the creator's or the content creator's name, the name of the episode, if there's more than one. And in this case, there is more than one in the works cited page. If not, then you can remove this. So for example, if there's not more than one episode, then you would just leave it like this, and then that would work just fine. Let's look at another one. In this case, as I mentioned before, we want to include the name of the article or shortened version of it if the author's not present. So the author's not present in this case, so the the works cited page starts with the title. So if that's the case, here we have the name of the title of the article, and that's going to be in quotation marks as well. Let's say, for example, there is just the book name. Okay, let's pretend that we deleted this, but there's no name of the author for this book, for example. So if it is the name of a book, we're just gonna italicize this and delete the quotes. But in most cases, you're going to have an article or some version of that. But for right now, I just want to emphasize again that if you don't have the author's name, then you would just put this in there in that in-text citation, if you have the page number as well, you will add it. So you would incorporate as much information as you can, but if there is no specific page number, in this case there is, so we'll add what page number this information comes from. So this is the basics, and as I said before, that if you find yourself in a situation where you don't have the info on how to cite the page, just be sure to go to the CSN Library's website, and it'll be able to provide more information for you to assist you in the process of incorporating your in-text citations.